we're not really a brand. We're more like a lifestyle, and that we are a culture, because what we create is this avidity within our fans of people looking for a respite. When you're in a business, and as the way things are rapidly changing today, that tomorrow's idea can be irrelevant by the end of the day. It used to be irrelevant a decade away. Now it can be irrelevant tomorrow. Everybody that shows up has talent. So there has to be a separator of their talent, they're beautiful, they're fit, all of these things. But what is it? What separates you from the person sitting beside you? They just have this way of really grabbing our attention and making it look like they can do this without any effort, and you could sit there and watch them all day long.
Should we expect to see a season 2?
There's a part of me that's like, man, I can't help but think, why wouldn't they?
Welcome to More to Say. I'm Amber Vinsbox, founder of the $2 billion creator commerce platform, LTK. I've spent the last 14 years pioneering the creator economy, and on this podcast, I'm giving you direct access to the knowledge and perspectives of some of today's most influential people. I want you to stay ahead of the curve, so pull up a seat because we are just getting started. Today, I have a very exciting guest, especially for all of my fellow Dallas Cowboy and Dallas Cowboy Cheerleader fans, Charlotte Jones. As the Chief Brand Officer and co-owner of the Dallas Cowboys, Charlotte has been instrumental in shaping the iconic brand that is considered to be the most valuable sports organization in the world. Most recently, Bloomberg noted that the Dallas Cowboys are worth over $9 billion, and her family has owned the team for over 30 years. Charlotte is also a key figure in the recent #1 Netflix series, America's Sweethearts, Dallas Cowboys Cheerleaders. This show has captivated audiences worldwide with its behind-the-scenes look at making the legendary cheerleading Dallas Cowboy cheerleading squad. Charlotte, in 2019, you came to LTKCon and you gave this keynote speech, and I was struck by two things. One, you had a walk-up video. And when that video played, it just shook the entire hotel. It was incredible. It was moving. It really set the tone for the Cowboys brand. And that was what you were going to speak to. I immediately was messaging our whole team of must have walk-up video. But the second and maybe more important thing was just really how naturally you understood our clients, what they were doing, what they needed to hear. LTK has started a new industry, and the business is pretty complex to a lot of people because there's actually multiple businesses that feed each other. And so people might think they understand from the outside, but once you get in, we find a lot of times that executives and investors really, we have to peel back the onion for them piece by piece. But you understood all of that and told the room what they needed to hear. And the quote that I always reference is you said, we're going to take how we need to, what did it say? This is about how we take who we are to inspire others to be the best versions of themselves. And I had never heard our business articulated that way, but it really resonated both with me and with people in the room. And when I think about top female business leaders, or you ask people who are top female business leaders, they'll often recall maybe young female founders who have built big, flashy brands. And I mean this in the most positive way possible. I think you're the most underrated female, I'm going to call you a founder in this case, because brick by brick, truly brick by brick from a zero, you have built this brand to over $9 billion valuation. And I genuinely believe that you're one of the most influential, successful, innovative business leaders, that you deserve so much more attention for it. You have 30 years of building this brand. This wasn't like an overnight success of something that just sort of hit in a moment. This is something that is truly generational, and we'll get to that in a minute. But I am so excited to have you here today because I don't think my audience has heard from you or enough from you. And this is going to be a really powerful morning. So thank you so much, Charlotte.
Well, Amber, thank you so much for having me on. And I am completely impressed by you. So anytime I get a call and they say, Amber would love for you to do something, I couldn't jump on the opportunity fast enough because your story alone is so inspirational. So it really means a lot to me to have you ask me to be a part of what you're doing to not only inspire so many people, but encourage them to seek their full potential and to recognize the opportunities that are out there. And I think for all of us that are in that world, struggling to define what that actually means, it is, you are the leader in that regard, but, you give the space and you give the opportunity for everyone to be able to express themselves in the way, hopefully that is most authentic to them and allows them to reach who they're trying to reach in their unique way. And I'm a firm believer in that. So it's great to be here with you this morning and just excited to have a chat.
Well, I want to start at the very beginning. 1989, your dad purchased the Cowboys, which, by the way, is such an inspirational story. And I'm not going to put that story here on this podcast, but there are other podcasts, guys. If you want to go search for Charlotte, the Dallas Cowboys, where she does an amazing job articulating just what her family and father did in order to get to that point. But when he made that purchase, did you instantly want to pursue a career with the team?
This is what I think is the beauty of my so-called career is absolutely nothing that I ever thought I was going to be involved with, nor is it anything that I ever thought I could step back and reflect that, oh my gosh, maybe I was actually good at it. And I didn't really project any of this in the cards for me. As a matter of fact, when I left school, I think the one thing that I did know is that I wanted to be involved in something that was really going to make an impact on people. I began my young career trying to go to med school. I thought that was going to actually be my direction, was to be involved in medicine because, again, I wanted to find something that was really purposeful. That didn't work out for me, or I quickly got, a reality check when I realized that that was not really the path that I was meant to be on. And when I left school, I went to Washington, D.C., thinking the very same thing. It's like, okay, well, if I'm not going to do it in the medical field, maybe I can do it in the political arena and really affect policy changes. Washington and I did not agree with each other. And I think basically the trajectory, the how of which things were done, probably was really eye-opening to me to be involved in that aspect of it. But in the same step, I knew I wanted to do something that was important to others. While I was there, my dad had this harebrained idea of buying the Dallas Cowboys. And, that too was something that I never thought my family would be involved in. But more importantly, I never thought it would be something that I would become passionate about. I always was a big football fan. I grew up in Arkansas, so college football was the thing to be supportive of. I didn't have a professional football team that I cheered for, but certainly the Razorbacks were inherent in my blood and in our family. So I knew a lot about football. I cheered myself. I was definitely a sports fan. But when my dad bought the team, I honestly thought he was crazy. He came to Washington, D.C. My younger brother was at Georgetown at that time. And he said, hey, look, guys. And he spread out this deal on the table and said, this is what I want to do. I think my brother and I both thought he was crazy because at that time, the Cowboys were losing $75,000 a day, over $1.5 million a month. The team was 3-13 without a chance of a winning season. So they were pretty disastrous on the field. They were disastrous from a financial spot as well. And for the life of me, I couldn't figure out why. Why do you want to do this? And when I asked my dad that question, it really became obvious that it was his passion. It's what he had wanted to do all of his life. And he finally had the opportunity to get involved with the Cowboys. But then it was like, this was this huge uphill struggle of how do you make this actually work? And a few months later, I got a call from my dad. And the irony of it all is it wasn't about football at all. He asked me, he said, do you know the difference between hot pants and biker shorts? And, I thought he was crazy at the time. I think he's crazy often, but at that time I thought he was pretty crazy. And I said, why in the world would you ask me that question? And he said, Charlotte, there's a line of women outside of my office that think that I'm going to change the iconic cheerleader uniform from hot pants to biker shorts. And I frankly don't even know the difference between the two. And could you just come down here and help me out? And I had a background in dance. So I thought, well, this is something that I actually know a little bit about, and I'll come down and see what's going on. Rewind the clock back to 1989. It was 1990 by then. Everything here in Dallas was on fire. It was, just financial destruction. People in Dallas didn't like the idea of someone from Arkansas coming in to take on the beloved Cowboys. And how would we, welcome this hillbilly family in from this, on this crazy ride? And there was just all kinds of disaster happening. And this was one of the controversies. Well, I jumped into that pretty quickly, realized it was a rumor that someone else had started, on top of the many other rumors and lawsuits that were flying around at the time. And while I was down here, my dad said, well, you handled that one pretty quick. He said, will you stay? And I looked at him and I was like, well, Dad, I don't know anything about running a professional sports team, much less a football team. And he looked at me deadpan and he said, that's okay. Neither do I. I just need somebody around me that I can trust, and somebody that will lay awake at night and try to solve these problems, figure out a direction, and figure out what we're going to do. And, I thought that was very poignant at the time of you really weren't looking for someone with an expertise. You were just looking for someone that was trustworthy. And, that was an easy call for me. So I packed up my bag in DC, moved to Dallas, found myself a little broom closet, moved into the broom closet, and then went to my dad and said, okay, I'm here now. What do you want me to do? And he said two things. He said, first, find a way to stop losing money. And second, whatever you do, don't tarnish the star. And that was my only directive. And again, I knew what he meant by don't lose money. I didn't really know what he meant by don't tarnish the star until I rolled up my sleeves and got involved and realized the only thing that was valuable about what we had just stepped into was the history of the brand. So how did you jump in and figure out how to solve all the issues that they were having, both on the field, off the field, financially and otherwise, without ruining what people valued the most? And that was this iconic brand of the Cowboys that started back in the 60s. And how did you take what people had such a huge affinity for and fix the problems, identify them, acknowledge them, fix them, and then find a strategy to move forward and innovate from there? And that was the beginning of my journey that now, looking back after 30 years, became my passion also.
The dynamic with your dad is so interesting to me because I think about him, me being an adult and him starting a business. Would he call on me, or would Baxter's dad call on him? Did your dad always want to have a family business, or what was it that made you, the one that he said, okay, come lead?
I think I was very lucky growing up, had two wonderfully supportive parents. My dad was gone a lot. He was on the road most of the time. So when he came back, he always wanted everything to be like Christmas, which drove my mom crazy because she was there every day, trying to keep everyone in line. And then he would come in and, sprinkle like fairy dust on everything as if everything was great. And they were both always super encouraging for me. And, my father always thought I could be president of the United States if I wanted to. And so he was always a motivator of go out and pursue your dreams. And I think because this was such a huge dream of his, he wanted everybody to be around him. And he wanted, our family was close. He wanted us to stay involved. He wanted us to not be far from home, but to go, pursue what we wanted to. So there was always, I think, think selfishly, this seemed to be the way to get all of us involved of how can I do something that's exciting that will interest all three of my kids, and not just maybe one of them, and see if we can keep our family unit close together. I wouldn't have picked that, growing up of like, that's it. I mean, my dad was in the oil and gas business. So our family dinner table looked like, there all of us sat, and my dad would take our glass of milk and tell us about drilling oil wells. And he would take my straw and say, well, if you could put your straw over into Exxon has the whole glass of milk, and your straw is sitting over here. But if you can find a way to get that milk out of Exxon's hole, then you could go sell it. And then you can make some money over in the oil and gas business. So anyway, he had all of these stories and myths about how to, keep us engaged in what he was doing. And let's face it, oil and gas is not near as entertaining as football. So I think this was a great way for him to pivot into his passion, but bring us along the way.
Well, he's very strategic in finding ways to pull you in. I can think of that Shorts moment. He sounds like the man who has finally found a tool to bring you in. It doesn't even sound like happenstance, just hearing about these childhood conversations. And I look around, where I'm living currently. My listeners know that I'm currently out in far West Texas. I'm in the middle of a bunch of ranches. And the dynamics that I'm hearing about a lot are that they've been generational businesses, but that not all the children are interested in it. And so now they're looking at what is the future of the ranch now that the children are not interested. And for Baxter and I, we often think about how do we keep our children interested? How do we make sure that they are going to be hardworking and people that we could, bring into whatever business it is that we're in? Were there any other little things that your parents did that kind of kept you guys, to be highly motivated and then also, productive individuals that were worthy of the trust of a business?
I think most importantly, and of course, as I was raising my own children, you're always thinking of all the things of how do I get this right? This is the most important thing to get right is to raise our children understanding the importance of integrity and character, but also hard work and what does that actually look like, especially today? What does hard work and perseverance actually look like? And for us growing up, we had incredible role models of hardworking grandparents, hardworking parents, and we knew that Santa Claus didn't put the presents under the tree. Someone had to work really hard to go out there and make that happen, to bring us a Christmas that was, had the magic associated with it all. It didn't just happen overnight. And I remember my first job was actually working with my grandmother on my dad's side of the family. And we had this, my grandparents had this exotic animal paradise. So it was a drive-through park where you could feed the animals and all of this. We were in the entertainment business, and we would go up there. My parents would leave us there for the summer, and my brother would bale hay, and I would sack feed and work in the concession store and do all of the things right alongside my grandmother. And I watched my grandmother wake up early to put breakfast on the table, to get my grandfather out the door. Then she would hurry and get herself ready. And she was the bookkeeper. She was the accountant. So she had her work to do. And then we'd go, straight to the office, and she'd put me to work. And then she'd say, we got to hurry up and get home so we can make dinner and put dinner on the table. And, when I recall my childhood, my female role model was my grandmother. She was a Renaissance woman before that term ever came to be. And that's just who they were. They worked hard. They toiled. It was hard labor. And they, didn't let their children slack in terms of effort and requirement in building a family, much less building a family business. And I think we learned from both sides what it meant to work hard. Our parents were loving, supportive, and also demanding. And I think for me, I needed to figure out how to capture that so I could also teach my children to do the same way. And I think what I found is there's no better way to do it than by example. And when your kids see you, they need to see you not only come home and bring them presents and excite their lives, but they need to see you struggle. They need to see you work hard. They need to see you upset when things don't go well. So they know that life is a project and it's a journey, and everything that comes our way, we have to find ways through it and how to keep them understanding that there's a lot that goes into creating success. And when you can be inspired by your family, you're more likely to stay with your family and appreciate what they've created so that you can take it to another level.
So in the office, I've seen that you guys have a lot of different projects. It's not just the football team, of course. There's real estate, there's brand. You can go on and on and on, honestly, about all the things that you have on your plate right now. And a common thread for me that I see across that is just excellence, whether it's walking into the foyer of one of your buildings or looking at the practice field or the way that you have engineered the facility to be an entertainment venue, even for your clients. I see that people line up behind you and they pull that excellence forward. How would you describe your leadership philosophy or the way that you lead others?
I think, there's a couple things that you said in there along with the leadership, and that's, why do you invest in certain things? You can have an office building or you can work remotely and do business. Why do you invest in the bells and whistles of an office building? Of what does it look like? What does it feel like? What does it make you feel like when you walk into a certain space, whether it be a stadium or your headquarters or whatever that is? And, I think fans, clients, supporters, whoever they are, they're smart. And they know if you have invested in something for them, or did you just invest in it for yourself? And every step of the way in things that we have done here in our family and in our family business has been about investing in those so they would take their hard-earned dollars and invest them back in us. And what do I mean by that? Steve Wynn once said that, you take the sparkly hotels and everything out in Vegas, and why do you put a Picasso museum out in the middle of Las Vegas? Well, you give your clients a reason to come back that is beyond the obvious reason of why they're there. That if they can walk through the door and say, hey, they spent a little extra money on me in my experience, and they didn't have to. So this makes me feel good and makes me feel like I want to patron here and return here because they care about me. When I look at our stadium, we could have built our stadium for $750 million. That's a lot of money. We put $1.2 billion in it just for the wow factor. So people would walk in and it would feel like the lobby of the Ritz, or it would make them feel like they were important, that we valued them, and that they were special. And we've done that every step of the way. The same thing here at the headquarters. It doesn't, benefit us like transactionally to overinvest in what we create and what we build. But for the long-term affinity of who we are, it pays off in spades. It creates this sense of, we authentically care about the people that not only work here, but the people that patron all that we do. And you got to invest in them or they will never invest in you.
Mm-hmm. You're the chief brand officer.
Go ahead. Oh, no, I was just going to say, I think from, with that, I think as you take that to the next step of how do you lead and, inspiring those people around you to take that same passion in what they do. And that means everybody that works like within our organization, that the most important person is the first face that they see when people are greeted at the stadium. And that job is every bit as significant as the head coach's job on the field, because that is the first impression of who you are when you get there and the experience that they're going to absorb and take with them when they leave. And I think for us, if we don't lead in the same way where we care about the people that are here, then that's not going to trickle down all the way through our organization. So that same person is going to be as concerned about picking the piece of paper up out of the hallway as you are to make sure that the experience is perfection. And that's what we all strive for, but everybody has to feel it in your ecosystem. So that leading by example, I think, is the most effective way to get that message spread throughout your whole organization.
For your lieutenants who remain in the organization and are very successful and grow in their career with you, what do you think are some common traits that they have?
First, passionate. I think that you have to be passionate about what you do, and whatever that is that you do. We all are passionate about different things, but I think when you whatever inspires you to wake up in the middle of the night and think of a great idea, or motivate yourself to get up and want to go that extra mile, or to come in with a new idea, that doesn't just happen if you're not passionate about what you do. And I think in that passion, there also needs to be a purpose with it. And I think what motivates most of us is that we do want to wake up and do something that's meaningful. And whatever that purpose might be, if it's just inspiring the person that's working beside you, that's purpose. It can be small, it can be magnified on a huge scale, but as long as you feel like you're doing it for someone beyond yourself, then what you do is going to be so much more rewarding for you. And it is also going to be felt by those that surround you.
There has been so much going on at LTK lately, so I wanted to give you guys just a quick snapshot. We just launched an all-new video player in the LTK app, so be sure that you've gone in, you've updated your app. When you go to my LTK at Amber Vin's box, just click into any of my videos and it suddenly becomes a channel for you. So you can watch endlessly all of my try-on videos, my house tours, everything that I've shown you guys via video becomes into one single channel. It's an amazing viewing experience. I'm so excited for you guys to get to discover even more about all that I'm sharing and all the creators on LTK. If this wasn't such a big deal, I wouldn't interrupt this show to tell you it's totally worth the update. Go in, check it out. I hope you guys really enjoy the new video experience. You're the chief brand officer of now the most valuable sports team in the world. And that's something that didn't happen because of your list of Lombardi trophies over the last 30 years. While you do have some, I would say that it's really been because of your marketing strategy and your focus on your customer. How do you think about building a brand? Because to me, it's very different than what we see from other teams and other businesses.
I think for us, and for me personally, I think I began my career, and we had a lot of great football success early on in the 90s, and we won 3 out of 4 Super Bowls, and everything, kind of came at us at once, in the midst of a lot of fire and a lot of controversy. Then there came a lot of success, and everything just happened like boom, 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 boom. And then, as you mentioned, there's been quite a drought from the success that we've achieved on the field. And we have fallen short of that mark time and again, and continue to try to make progress there, because our ultimate goal every year is to be in the Super Bowl. That doesn't happen. So for me, carving out my own niche has been, all right, if you can't rely on the success on the field, then what are you going to rely on? And I knew that we needed to have a parallel path to that, where we were able to have a little bit more control of what we were as an organization, as a brand, as an impact and community. Because let's face it, we do all of this work to get to where our season starts. And then on Sunday, we have zero control. I don't know if that exists in any other business, but sport. You work all that way and then you turn all the reins over and you can't affect one single change for those 3 hours. And that's, it's exciting. It's frustrating. It's all of those things. So where do you put your energy in that you actually can control? And for us, that has physically manifested itself. And while we can create the greatest experience that there is that surrounds the game, so we can focus on that, whether it be from a big idea like the stadium to a small idea like, iconic or sonic branding or just experiential things that happen that people want to share with people that are not there. All of that takes on its own life. And then, when we built the Star, we're only at the stadium 10 days a year. What are we doing for the rest of the year that we could potentially engage and be innovative in? And that's when we decided, okay, well, expanding on where our headquarters are and making that an experience that people want to be a part of, and then adding different business aspects to that to where it would be financially sound, as well as engaging, as well as create an evergreen marketing strategy, then that became our next step. So all of these things were about, all right, well, what happens if you isolate yourself from me in a vacuum that's like, what if you don't win? Then what are you going to do? And how do you create relevancy if you're not being relevant on the field? And how do you create impact and importance and true community engagement if it can't be about the win? And you don't hear many people in sports say that, because the focus is predominantly on winning. That's what we do. We're a competition. We've got to win. That's the focus. But for us, it has to be much bigger than that. And I think that singular focus on what is that next big idea of engagement and of being truly authentic in every step that we take has really been the journey that I personally have been on, for the last 20 years. But I think needs to be, everybody's thought in terms of when you're in a business and as the way things are rapidly changing today, that tomorrow's idea can be irrelevant by the end of the day. It used to be irrelevant a decade away. Now it can be irrelevant tomorrow. And what is your next step? So I think that focus on innovation without complete disruption, while in the same vein, not being afraid to disrupt in order to achieve.
I've heard you say that you want it to be more of a culture than a sport. What does that mean to you? Or what's the kind of the tangible proof of that for you?
I've always felt that our brand, that the Dallas Cowboys, I actually don't like the word brand, because I think, a brand is something, you out in West Texas, you really know this. A brand is something that ranchers do to cattle, right? And it can distinguish the neighbor's cow from your cow. Well, if we felt like we were so much like the person next to us, then we've kind of already lost the war. And for me, I felt like we're not really a brand. We're more like a lifestyle, and that we are a culture, because what we create is this avidity within our fans of people looking for a respite. Everybody's day is a struggle. And what they want to do when they come to our game is put their daily struggle aside and just get out there and cheer for something, be a part of something bigger than themselves, and be inspired by people who also have failure that they have to get up from and try to achieve the next play after the next play after the next, and be involved in something that brings people together. And I think in that, it's much like people's alma maters are cultures, the University of Texas, Notre Dame. I mean, the list goes on of people feel a part of something bigger than exactly who they are alone. And for us, as we move through that of how do we find ways to connect with people in all aspects of their life, not just on game days. And that really, in essence, is what the Star itself has become, our headquarters, because it is a part of a lifestyle. It's a part of working out, of eating. It's where you live. It's where you work. It's where you play. And it has a thread through it that brings people back to the reason why they showed up in the first place. And that's to be connected deeper with who we are as an organization.
I've really noticed that you guys are intentional about bringing certain people into the Cowboys orbit. So who I'm going to call is like not direct customers, but sort of like outer ring audiences. So an example of that might be like parents or residents of neighborhoods that you guys move into. So tell us more about the strategy there of these outer ring audiences and why you invest in them.
So it's interesting that you bring that up, because when we we're building the Star, and we were trying to conceive of what this place actually is. And for those of you who may not know, the headquarters of the Dallas Cowboys were based in Frisco, but we have our indoor practice facility is the high school football stadium for 9 different high schools in Frisco. And the whole effort of coming to Frisco was to really be inextricably linked to the heartbeat of our game, which is high school football. And that's the communities and the kids in the community and the families in the communities and what they all rally around during the fall of being a part of what really defines their own individual communities. And we do that as parents, through the lives of our children. And where are they engaged and how are they engaged? So when we built this Star and we knew we were going to be having these families come out here, we just put on our family hat of what do we do every Saturday? And, you have kids, Amber, and many of your listeners have kids. And we all know what dominates our Thursday nights, Friday nights, Saturdays of the sport that they're engaged with. What are they doing when they're practicing? What is mom doing when the practice is going on? Where is dad at the game? If you have a cheerleader or if you have a band member, they perform at halftime, but you're really not interested in the game in the first half or the second half. So where are you hanging out? You got little kids running around. Where are they going to go play that's safe while the other child is on the field? All of these things that make up your ecosystem as a family, we wanted to solve for here at the Star of what does that family experience mean? I'm going to bring my grandmother. So how far is the distance to the parking lot? I'm going to bring my younger kid, and he really doesn't want to sit still for a whole game. So where can he go play that is safe, and is it supervised? Maybe I have some adult friends that at halftime, maybe they want a little break. They want a little cocktail hour that is not allowed in high school sports. Where might they go to go do that? It's how do you bring all of these aspects together and really create that experience? And you need to put it on your hat, not as a business person, but as a mom or as a dad or as a brother, whatever it might be, of what do I do every day and what is valuable to me every day, and how do I make this function best for that so that family nucleus can stay together. And that's really what the whole philosophy was behind the Star.
And just to articulate for those listening, if you have not seen the Star or haven't Googled it just yet, it is everything that Charlotte's describing. You can have your business offices there. There are businesses that have entire towers or have certain, I think 75% of where you guys actually offices the Cowboys. There are all the iconic restaurants from the DFW area that are there. There's workout gym. There's, housing of all types there. And so if you haven't realized by this point what Charlotte's doing with all of the high schools in Frisco playing at the Star, this is pure genius. This is what I'm talking about, is Charlotte is the unsung hero of brand building and lifestyle building. It's pretty incredible. Shifting gears really quickly, I guess, to kind of just what's changing in sports and entertainment. You talk a lot about entertainment. I'm entertained by you personally on your Instagram and who you have at the games and the iconic Charlotte selfie that you do. And of course, you guys have invested in the show that we'll talk about in a little bit, but there's a lot changing just in sports and entertainment. How are you guys approaching really and evolving, you guys, the Cowboys, the lifestyle for what audiences are demanding now?
I think it's so intriguing, the role that sports has always played in our society, but particularly today when it comes to media, of the domination of sports and media rights on television and streaming, linear platforms, wherever you consume whatever content that you're interested in, whether it be the competitive content or the lifestyle content that surrounds it. There's so much that is evolving so quickly on the landscape, and I think about this from the past 30 years that I've been involved, and I mentioned it earlier, is the rate of change is so amazing to sit back and watch, because even for us that has started to get used to a faster pace of things evolving, it continues to be disrupted all across the landscape that affects immediately who we are as a brand, who we are as a game, and what our role is in society. And I think, I never want to take what we do for granted, but I also always never want to put more emphasis on it than it actually deserves. I mean, we enjoy an inordinate amount of attention and visibility in what we do in the game that we play. Definitely misplaced. There should be more attention put and more accolades put upon teachers and our doctors and all of the people that make our communities work. We just happen to be receiving that interest. But with that comes an incredible responsibility for us to do something important with it. And that has always been a driver for us as an organization, that we don't just play the game. We have to build community while we play the game. And how do we do that? And what path do we take that on? And so for us, as we sit back and we look at, how things change, is that we definitely focus on, the impact of the game. But then also, what does that mean about what people want to know from our game? And how do we leverage that into being a significant part of the sports ecosystem, but even bigger than that, a significant part of our ecosystem within our United States, but then also how do we figure out how to take that on further and influence our game and influence people beyond our borders? I don't even know what your question was, Amber. I went on a tangent. So
there's honestly, there's such depth to that question. And I purposely made it ambiguous because I'm probably not thinking of even the things that you're thinking of, but just, I think sports changing, whether it's at the collegiate level or at the professional level, the entertainment landscape, I think most significantly, which guys have done an amazing job kind of capturing. One thing that kind of leads me into is that I think you guys are unique in that you own your own brand. I'm not going to articulate this correctly, but you own the Cowboys brand versus other teams do not. Is that right?
We do. We own our own merchandising rights so that we can produce, manufacture, and sell any product that has Cowboy Star on it. Predominantly soft good product like hats, T-shirts, whatever, that has our star on it, versus the other teams that have given their rights to the league to package and to develop whatever merchandise that actually looks like. So we entered that agreement years ago when we recognized that we were actually selling the majority of the product that you see relative to other teams. But in order to do that, to kind of break away from that pack, we did have to guarantee and share a certain amount of revenue with the other clubs, and then be confident that we could then exceed that in what we could sell and distribute on our own. So there's a long history there with that, but it's kind of to the philosophy of, when you see something and you think you can actually do it and run it better than those who are currently managing it for you, then it's worth a risk, maybe a financial risk, but also an operating risk to break off and go do it on your own. There's pros and cons to both of that. It's been successful for us. Everybody else may have their own opinions on if they think it's something that they could, achieve on their own, or if it's even worth the effort and the energy to put behind it in order to do so. That's just been our our path and our journey to take control of that. We kind of like to be in control of
there's a real
most
business
everything
lesson.
that we do. So yeah, and it might look, a lot of people other teams may complain from afar of how do they get to do that. But, you got to put your money on the line, and you got to back it up, and you got to run it, and you've got to distribute it. And there's a lot more work that goes into it, and a whole lot more risk. And I would say that it's probably been the separator for us from day one is we've never shied away from risk. And the difference between us and other teams is we have a higher appetite for risk. But we also know that we're not afraid of hard work either. So in that, it's not just a blind risk. We obviously have a pretty good assessment going into it of what we think it's going to require in order to execute successfully. And we've been right most of the time in taking on that risk. We have a fair share of things that have been bad ideas, as we all do. But the ones that are most visible of obviously the ones that have been most successful for us.
So the way that I came across this was actually just several clients coming into Dallas. And so I'll get phone calls of like, hey, I'm passing through. Are you around? And one was Kristen Ustek, who has the designs by Kristen. And she was the one, if you guys listening, remember like Taylor Swift wore one of her jackets. You saw a bunch of what we call WAGs, wives and girlfriends, wearing the jackets over the course of this last football season. And she is like an amazing overnight success story, truly of, grandmother taught her to sew. She's reconstructing jerseys and making these jackets. So I got a call from Kristen as she's going to Dallas to meet with Charlotte. Similarly, one of our top sold products from an NFL perspective are the Abercrombie sweatshirts that have the iconic, retro. I say retro laughing because I think I was alive and watching these games, but the retro Cowboys sort of like shirts that I remember my grandfather wearing actually that are very cool now. We do really, really well with. And Abercrombie's coming to town, of course, to meet with Charlotte. So that's how it hit my radar. But I bring it up here just for an edification standpoint for listeners, because there's a way this has been done right. And I would put Charlotte in that camp. I would put Kendra Scott in that camp, who, when she sold a piece for business, actually maintained the rights to her name and indefinitely. And that was part of negotiations with her investors and her partners, was that she was going to control that name. Where you see this go wrong, and you can go do your own research on this, I'm sure ChatGPT will tell you all about it, is, with Kate Spade. Kate Spade actually did not own her name. So after, the business moved on away from her personally, she actually wasn't able to use her name in business, which you can imagine would be a really challenging thing. So worth bringing up from the fashion perspective, but also for any business owners, just thinking about, what is important to you to have to own, and how can that play into your future opportunity set or your immediate revenue opportunity. So I thought that was really interesting from the Cowboys perspective. Okay, while we're on fashion, the NFL has launched a Instagram fashion handle, which I love to see. And we saw, I think, especially last year, like this has always been a thing with the WAGs, the wives and girlfriends. People are watching to see who they are and how they're dressing. And like, for me, I love Olivia Copo's always posting her get ready on her LTK of like what she's wearing to the games and her makeup. I bought so much of her stuff. And everyone, of course, is watching Taylor Swift. That's like Super Bowls. Like the first thing that's like hitting every single down the line of LTK is like what Taylor wore. They found the outfit. You can get it too. And so I'm so curious, like, how does this impact your plans for the Cowboys, and how does it impact the sport?
First of all, it's so great to see this. It's been an incredible evolution when we talk about women's apparel in sports, and probably one of the most frustrating things for me, because from the beginning, the best that they could do if you were a female fan, or heaven forbid, if you were a female employee on the sideline, of what were you going to wear? And basically the answer was you were going to wear the small version of the men's design. And that was it. And the industry still struggles a little bit behind that. To see it pick up, like it has over the last 18 months. And you got to give Taylor a lot of the credit for that kind of engagement of, or maybe I should say of legitimizing it, which I think is great because, bringing a voice to the need and then to the want, which is crazy for me because 45% of our fans are female. So think about that. 45% of our fans are female. And the other percent that the female fan, they're buying for themselves, but they are also the person buying for their sons or their husband or whoever else it is. They're the ones with all the buying power. So why in the world hasn't the industry come harder, heavier, faster than it has, to this date? So it is exciting to see over the past few years of how that is evolving, picking up, and people really wanting to support that because, you can reach out and try, but you got to have those people out there that are willing to support and buy, to keep it going, as we all know. And it's really been great to see that. Of course, we have had some great conversations with a lot of interesting people to do, different one-offs and different lines that are more fashion forward, that our fans will support. One of the greatest things we did last year around Thanksgiving was a T-shirt with Dolly Parton. So this is just crazy. Okay, not anything like super over the top. Just a cool T-shirt that we partnered with her because she performed for Thanksgiving for the Salvation Army and had this Dolly Rockstar Cowboys with her face and a cowboy star over her eye, which was her rock star thing. And our players wore it, and then it blew up. And we were printing T-shirts and printing T-shirts. We could not keep up with the demand, but it was in seconds that everybody responded to that. And that was a simple T-shirt with a super cool icon combined with a cowboy star that really made that thing, just light up and take off. But for us, we've got a few things in the works that you'll be seeing this fall, hopefully hit the sidelines. We've had some great individual partnerships in the past, but we're going a little deeper into that now because the demand has certainly risen, and we're excited for that to really take off and for people to feel good about what they're wearing to the game and to be as stylish at the game as they are when they're not at the game, that we've got a great market for that, and we need to make sure that we're providing a great offering too.
Well, I'm excited for that. I'm already envisioning what this is going to be and how Baxter and I are going to be at the game together. So thank you for bringing that to life.
Yes.
40 million shoppers use LTK every month. And as the co-founder and president, I have unique access to how these pop culture moments are playing out in fashion and on the streets. Being the number one show on Netflix means mass reach and tangible influence for the Dallas Cowboys. In the last 30 days alone, we saw traffic on Dallas Cowboys products grow by 10x. The top shopped products were tees, sweaters with a vintage appeal, and everything was from Abercrombie and Fanatics. Be sure to check the podcast section of my LTK at Amber Vin's box to see the exact top selling products. They're all really cute and under 100. DCC have the iconic white Lucchese boots. And since the show premiered, we have seen cowboy boots as a top search trend with shoppers on LTK. For cowboy boots, shopper searches are up 104% since the start of July. And with white cowboy boots specifically, which is what the girls wear, shopper searches are up 256% in the last week alone. I personally have the white Lucchese Priscilla boots, and if you search them on the products tab of my LTK at Amber Vin's box, you can see every time I've worn them and get different styling ideas. I love this pair because they have the high shaft. Shoppers are loving following along with DCC creators. We recently welcomed Kelsey Wetterberg and star Victoria and LTK creator Camille, who I just chatted with. These girls all have an LTK community, and there are so many Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders on LTK. I'm so excited for them because collectively, with this show now out, 30% of their LTK community just arrived this month. So be sure to search and follow Kelsey, Victoria, Mackenzie, and Rebecca, and we have all of them for you in the show notes so you can click through and get to them really easily. Okay, we can't not talk about Netflix. America's Sweethearts, #1, the Dallas Cowboys Cheerleader major hit series. It's trending across social media. Dallas Cowboys Cheerleaders now have 1 million followers. Truly #1. I love the billboard. That's the Netflix of like, be sure to stretch before you perform Thunderstruck. What role did you have in the production of this new show?
So this is so great. We're so excited. First of all, thank you for bringing it up. We're very excited about the success of the show. And for those listening, so this has been a bit of a journey. We had a reality show that was on CMT for 17 years. It was one of the longest running reality shows. And just about 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, we left CMT. So that partnership dissolved. And then we spent about a year trying to figure out, okay, what next? And what does this actually look like? And CMT had been a great partner with us, but we realized that this was an opportunity to do something very different. And for me personally, if we were going to do it, I really, and reimagine it, I really wanted to make sure that it was with the right people on the right platform and that we really partnered with somebody that we could trust. Back to that word again, I think it is so important to find a partner that you really can trust when you're dealing with what you've created, your brand, who you are, what you're truly about, that you can't just hand that over to someone and say, take off and go with it. So there was a lot of hesitancy, and would we want to do that without having complete control of the edit and the outcome? We decided that it was worth the effort if we could find the right director, because we moved from a reality show to a documentary. And when I met Greg, I have to tell you that he was the most trustworthy, amazing person that I've ever sat down to have lunch with. I went in completely skeptical and told him that, you have to convince me of why I think we should do this, because we have so much more to lose than we have to gain. And why would I ever entrust something that's so personal and that we're so proud of to somebody that I'm not sure if he actually understands who we are or what we are, or why these women choose to be a part of the organization that has been created. And over like a 3-hour lunch, Greg and I developed a really great relationship. And I just had that gut feeling that if somebody's going to step in here and I'm going to give up complete control, can he truly do this justice to these women that are so incredibly talented and to their stories? And would he treat them with the same respect that I was so protective of everybody that has cheered in the past, of those women that cheer today, of the women that actually run that organization. And you want to make sure that if you're turning it over, that you're turning it over to somebody that's, is truly going to be in the right hands and can really tell that story. After that meeting, I think he felt the same way and gave us some assurance that I think I get who you are and what you've created here, and I want to do it justice, and you can trust me. And with that, we gave up complete control, which I've never done. And that was the hardest thing I've ever done, and sat back and said, okay, we're gonna let you in here. We're gonna let you completely in. We're gonna show you everything that we're about, and we want you to tell these women's stories, and so everybody can understand and appreciate who they are, why they do what they do, and why was this entity of the Dallas Cowboys Cheerleaders ever created? Where did it come from, and why do these women continue to want to be a part of something that was created back when, but has been held so dearly to each of those who have participated. And I think what you see in the series shows you that. I think it shows you how difficult it is to make the team, first of all. But I think more importantly, it shows you the heart and the why behind these women who choose to be a part of this organization and what it means to them.
It gave me so much respect watching, because I think I had more passively watched, whether it was on TV or just from the stands. And, I was probably up high enough where I'm looking at, honestly, the massive screen that you guys have created. So I'm getting flashes of cheerleaders watching the game, and to actually sit and watch that whole season and see what all they go through, just really their personal excellence, and that they come from so many different backgrounds, but that this is a pinnacle moment in their lives and career, and that they're willing, most of them, seemingly so, have these full-time jobs. And then this is kind of what they're doing on their nights and weekends. It gave me a massive respect from them. Something that kept coming up was people having it factor, because there's so many amazing dancers. I think y'all said there's like 500 to start out with. We're culling down to 36 by the end of it. What would you describe as some of the things that can help to kind of check the box on someone having it factor? Because I think it's really interesting from a cheerleader perspective, but I also think just in a life perspective, in a likability perspective, in a professional setting, there's also people who inner orbit that have that. And how would you describe it?
I think that is really it. And I love that you have drawn the parallel to it's not just in dance performance, right? It is in life of do they have it? Anytime we sit down to interview someone for whatever job it might be, in whatever profession that we are, is like, what is the separator? Because let's face it, in the audition process today, it's a lot different than it was years and years ago. Everybody that shows up has talent. So there has to be a separator of their talent, they're beautiful, they're fit, all of these things. But what is it? What separates you from the person sitting beside you? And that is our journey, right? Our struggle through life of what separates me in the classroom from the person next to me, what separates me in the boardroom from the person next to me, and what is that overarching quality that stands up and makes people pay attention to you. And for me, when I sit back and I watch these women, the first thing that comes to mind when I think of the it factor is, if you're in a judging environment, you just put your pencil down and you just sit there and watch in awe of, wow, how in the world do they do what they do? How do they do it so effortlessly? How have they totally captivated my attention? And I'm not aware of anything else that's going on. I just am focused on who they are and what they're doing. And to me, that's it. You can have a lot of people, be great performers, but there's always somebody that you turn and you focus on and you focus your attention to. It's like you can sit down and you can listen to a lot of speakers, but there's always one that you're like, I hung on every word. And why? And they may be saying the exact same thing or something similar to it that the person that spoke before them did, but for some reason you were totally captivated by what they said. And that is it, right? And that comes from, where does that come from? I think it comes from a whole lot of things. I think it comes from someone's magnetism. I think it comes from their ability to captivate, to be able to tell story, whether it is lyrically or vocally, however they can tell that story. And then for that moment, you have forgotten about any and everything else but paying attention to who they are. And I think that is the separating quality. And I think when you line up people and you try to make that judgment, and you know what? It's not always the same for every person. We have an audience of 100,000 people on a game day. So who are they, who's drawn to whom on game day and for what reasons? And everyone has their own reasons, and everyone has their own why and their own thing that they resonate with, which also makes this that much more challenging. But at the end of the day, makes it that much more compelling that there's so many amazing people, and we have so many amazing performers on this squad that they just have this way of really grabbing our attention and making it look like they can do this without any effort, and you could sit there and watch them all day long.
How has the success of the show and the visibility that it's brought shown up for you in real life?
I think that's hard to actually quantify as we've been. I think one of the fun little side notes on this is that I never dreamed that Thunderstruck would go viral and we'd be watching, so many people perform it on TikTok and Instagram, whether it's the Savannah Bananas or the cast of Hamilton. It's been all over the place of people doing their version or replicating it. So I love that. I love that that's been kind of a fun takeaway from it. And I love I think dance is such a great, freeing thing. It's like I've seen moms dancing with their daughters. I've seen people dancing with their dog. I've seen people, do all of these things that it just has allowed people to be so expressive and an individual and what they've taken away from watching. I think that is impactful. What I have loved is people sharing their stories of how amazing that they see these women are. And that authentic rawness of, what they go through, who they are. These are 36 different women from different walks of life that have different stories on how they got to where they are. And the journey that they go through, I think is very powerful. And to me, that's why I wanted to do it. That's why I wanted everybody to get a glimpse inside and to see what they were all about and to understand what it's like to truly pursue your passion and what that actually means, to get a chance to realize that.
Taking a quick break to tell you guys about something that I have personally been loving over the last year. It's my Kodak Instax Mini. So if you're watching on YouTube, you'll be able to see me right now. It's this tiny little thing that's barely bigger than a credit card, and it's a handheld printer. So I've actually started taking this when we went camping, and I would print out pictures of everything that was happening as it was happening. I then collect these cute little printouts. They're probably like 3 inches by 2 inches, and I put them next to my bed in a little box. So it has just kind of over the years, all of my favorite memories that we've had together. And then recently this last weekend, one of my college best friends came to visit and our kids got to meet for the first time. And so for the very final night, if you guys are following me, you know that I love to have a dinner party and set the table. For the very last night, I printed off all the fun pictures of our families together over the weekend and laid them all out across the table, which was such a huge hit. These little printouts come out to about less than $1 each. And I can't tell you how much of a huge impact they have on just our family. My kids love to flip them next to my beds, but when you bring them out at a dinner party, it's just amazing. They are actually a sticker paper too. So my kids like to put them on their camp trunks. It's just such a great little toy. This is something for Christmas, for gifts. Like I can't tell you how much this just brings joy to our family and our guests. And I hope that you love it as well. All of this is always in the podcast section of my LTK at Amber Vin's box. What are your future goals for the organization, the Dallas Cowboy Cheerleaders?
I hope, one, that it's interesting because as you mentioned when you started this conversation that you went to games, but you didn't necessarily identify with all that it took for these women to actually be there. The goal is for people to understand and maybe appreciate that much more who they are, what they do, so that can propel them to do so much more. And I think, when we get a true understanding of what perseverance and sacrifice is, I think that's why people are drawn to our game. That's why they love love football. They're out there. It's a gladiator sport, and it's difficult, and it's hard, and it's challenging, and it's hard on your body, and but they keep going and they keep going, and it gives you something to relate to in your own life struggle, whatever that is, of like, I can keep going. I hope that they now look at these women in the very same way. There's a lot of challenge out there. There's a lot of hardship, a lot of perseverance, but they are out there, they are smiling, and they are performing at the most elite level.
So as we speak today, you are choosing the next group of cheerleaders for the upcoming season. Should we expect to see a season 2?
Oh my goodness. I hope so. There's a part of me that's like, man, I can't help but think, why wouldn't they? This is everybody. It's really gravitated towards it. And it's been, such an incredible success, for Netflix. And I will say, oddly as it may seem, this was not an easy sell. It wasn't that they weren't just banging down our door saying, let's do this tomorrow. Let's do this tomorrow. We had to convince them that this would be a good story to tell. I think they're convinced. So I think they should be. They should be by now. So we are very hopeful that, because of its success, that we'll get to do it at least one more time.
Well, we hope so. As we wrap up, I have a few quick questions that are really just around personal advice from you.
Yeah.
Okay. So I always am curious to hear what people are learning lately, because there's random moments in my life where something just clicks for me. And maybe it's just it could be about personal health, or about how I'm dealing with my kids, or how to cut through at work, or just an aha moment about business. And I'm curious, what's been that thing that you have either discovered or learned lately?
I will say this. I think lately the thing that has been most, and I don't know if it's actually an aha moment, but the most rewarding for me right now is, my kids are now at the age of, they're in the workforce and they are working right here alongside me. I think as a mom and as a working mom, when I was younger, there were a lot of mornings that I woke up and asked myself if I was doing the right thing. There were a lot of moments that I had to give up. As being a mom, I had to make other decisions. I remember vividly that my third son, his first word was in Spanish and not English. That broke my heart. I remember him crawling under my desk and unplugging my computer to get my attention. A lot of those things that tore me up as a working mom. Now, fast forward, that same child that was unplugging my computer and that spoke Spanish, just graduated from college. And he said, I never could have done it without you. And I think that it has almost taken me that long to justify, were my decisions right as a working mom? And now that I sit here and can offer them the same opportunity to come and join in a work journey, that might set them on, their own new trajectory, that I can finally look in the mirror and say, yes, I did it right. And that's been an aha moment for me, 30 years in the making.
It's huge. Yeah. It's something that I think about every day. I have discussions about. Just this morning, I've made some changes in how and when I'm with my kids, and there's a lump in my throat about it. I want it because it gives me a little bit more time, but then there's also stress that comes with it. And it's, yes, I want to raise, like you described, like these children who are capable and humble and are hardworking and can come alongside us and hopefully love the things that we love. And then there's a lot of times that I'm saying no. So it's wonderful to hear that story from you. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. Well, I hope it doesn't take you 30 years to look in the mirror and go, okay, it was worth it. I'm here to tell you, you should tell yourself that today in the mirror. Be proud of what you've done and know that you are setting a course that's great for your children.
Well, I'm sure there's a lot of people on this call that need to hear that. One, I guess maybe two more questions for you. One is, I look at all the things that you're doing and for how long you have been doing them and to the level of excellence that you do them. And I think about for myself, like, gosh, if it were me, I would have gone through like 10, I don't know, actually, no, probably more like 90 cycles of like burnout and back in and out. And like, there's, I'm actually an introvert. And so then I like really gear up for these moments that we have it, but then that's why I have to live at the ranch, is because then I also need the other end of the spectrum to like fully cool down and like get my energy back. And I'm so curious, like what kind of like either gives you your energy or is gratifying for you or keeps kind of like pushing you off as you've done this for so many decades now?
Oh my goodness. I think, I think about that a lot, actually, because I get that question a lot. And I wonder, I ask myself, I'm like, what is it that does that? And I think for me, it is, since I am in the world of sports, it is, right now we sit here and we're about to pick a new team. We're about to go to training camp this week and start practice, all ready for a whole new season and a new chapter. I think the fact that in February, you close a book, like the chapter's over, and then most of us are not happy about how it ended. There's only one team that's ever excited about how it ended. And so you spend that next time of like, oh, I was almost there. Now let's go again. I'm going to get it this time. And I feel like that restart, that technically we restart every year. So there's this natural boost of like, here we go again. Now, how long does it take to recover between that last game? And, a lot of times it's like the last game's over and you just want to go hide and put your head in the sand and like, oh, we let so many people down and this is so depressing. And it takes a little longer to pull your head back up. But then once it's back up, it's like that same drive goes again of like, here we go again. And we have another opportunity. We get to go do this again. And I think for me, it is the constant realization that it is a privilege, not a right, to get to work here and to get to be involved with something that is so significant, that can make such a significant contribution to community and that can empower so many people, good and bad, I guess. It's for people to get excited, to people to get frustrated, but to have that sense of relevancy that you can impact emotion. That is my motivator every day.
I love that. Okay, last one. What excites you about this season specifically that we are about to move into?
Oh my goodness. So much. We have a few contracts that have to be resolved with some of our players that are on the field right now. So we're excited to be able to do that. We're excited to get them, into camp focused and ready to go again. We got a lot of talent on the team. So super excited about our opportunities to be successful on the field. We are very excited about the Dallas Cowboys Cheerleaders and the new women that are a part of this organization and that are excited to join this journey for the year. That is all super exciting. And I think just looking and seeing the landscape, how it is being so impacted by what our media story is and the impact that we're having with our off-field media stories, that this Netflix story, for one, we've got another big documentary that's coming out about the Cowboys themselves and our family that will launch at the end of the season. So we have a lot of exciting things that are coming our way, but we're hopeful. And as we all know, we're all tied right now. So we've got as good a shot as anybody else. And we're hoping that we'll be playing in February.
Well, and you're going into the season with a new ring and hopefully coming out with a new ring.
Yes, exactly. Yes, we are.
Oh, wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Charlotte. We have so much to learn from you. You were so generous across just your family, your profession, the way you think about brand. It's unique to anything I've ever seen. And I'm just so excited for everyone to have this level of access to you. Thank you for being here on More to Say.
Thank you for including me, Amber. Good luck to you.
I have a fun surprise for you today. Dallas Cowboys cheerleader and 2023 Rookie of the Year, Camille Sturdivant, who is also an LTK team member. I have unique access to Camille because she's on the LTK team, and I wanted you to hear directly from someone who is deep in the organization of the Dallas Cowboys, living and breathing the brand. So let's jump in with Camille. Camille, how do you manage the demands of being a Dallas Cowboys cheerleader while maintaining a full-time job?
Yes. So my schedule is very full in being both a cheerleader full-time and a coordinator full-time. I think something that's important to note is I've been dancing since I was 2. So I'm used to a jam-packed agenda. In high school, I danced for 20 hours outside of school and also had a job. In college, I was a student full-time, danced on the dance team, was involved in a sorority. So I call myself a professional juggler. I love to just have a jam-packed agenda. But I think what's really important to me is segmenting my time correctly. So making sure I have dedicated, 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. external things, going to the gym, things like that I need to get ironed out before I start work. 9 to 5's obviously segmented for meetings, emails, anything that I need to do day to day. And then of course, 6 to 10-ish or so is dedicated DCC time. So just making sure that I keep all of my windows pretty blocked so that way I can just get everything done to the fullest ability each day.
You are a Wonder Woman. Okay, now I'm just curious. Are you drinking like any sort of caffeinated drinks? You like on water? I'm like, how are you like feeding this?
Yes, coffee is my best friend. Coffee. And then I've recently discovered through some of my teammates Uptime. It's like a green tea inspired energy drink. So that's my like afternoon. Once I've had coffee, Uptime is what I'll do if I need more caffeine. And sleep. Sleep keeps me energized too.
Yeah, that's an insane schedule. One of the things I thought was so interesting when I was watching the show was that, well, first of all, I'm from Dallas. And so, of course, there's a pride in having this world-class organization here in my hometown. There's such a high demand. I had no idea that 500 people typically are trying out, sending in videos to be on the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders. Obviously, quite a low acceptance rate at like 36, I think is what they said they're aiming for. There's such a global prestige to uphold. And when I hear the leadership, Charlotte and others kind of talking about what they expect of you guys, it seems like they have put real rigor and kind of a vocabulary around the expectations for you guys. And I'm so curious, because of the excellence of the group, like, what do you feel, what skills, I guess, have you learned from being a Dallas Cowboys cheerleader that have helped you maybe professionally and personally?
Absolutely. I think kind of how you touched on the point of excellence. I think that's something that really has been instilled in me in this last year, in anything that we do, whether it's practice, appearances, camps for elementary school kids. Excellence is expected. It's the standard for everything that we do. And it's that way because there's so much preparation and practice that we put into everything that is DCC. So I think in my professional career, in my personal life, I expect of myself excellence because, if you have all of these resources and things that you can do to educate yourself and set yourself up for success, why not utilize them? So I think that's definitely something that I've tried to transfer from DCC into everything that I do, both professionally, personally, just to set myself up to be as sufficient as possible.
So I really admire the cohesion of your group and that sort of shared excellence expectation. And as like taking myself out of like a viewer of the show and putting myself now in kind of a work role, I think about how I want to inspire my team to deliver excellence every time. I want like every discretionary decision that they're making to be the right one and the best one. Do you feel like there's anything that, the leadership around DCC is doing in their training that is setting you guys apart from maybe other organizations, whether it be cheer organizations or even just professional organizations? Because they seem to be able to, have like harnessed all of your abilities and are really getting the most out of each of you.
Absolutely. I think the experience of our leadership is very important to what makes DCC what it is. Kelly and Judy and Charlotte and even our group leaders have so much tenure and experience with the organization that they know what every game day scenario is like, what every appearance scenario will be like. So with their education, they're able to inform us of, hey, here's what to expect. Here's what we learned from the last performance. So we're always learning something new and using our resources. So that way we know going into a performance exactly what to expect, exactly what to do, what their expectations are of us. So that way we can just be the best that we can be for everything.
I feel like I've heard that there's a handbook that maybe kind of covers expected behavior. Is that true?
We have a contract that we sign that kind of outlines do's, don'ts, best practices, and things like that.
So when you read that, do you, are there certain things that stand out to you as like, these have been wonderful life skills for me? Like I've been able to carry these things through that I was basically coached on through this agreement?
Yeah, I think not so much contractually, but I think just kind of handed down from our group leaders, like just expecting the best out of yourself, being positive at every appearance, interaction that we have. I think at the end of the day, our job as a cheerleader is to bring cheer, bring joy. So applying that to everything that I do, whether it's, sitting down and signing posters or performing somewhere, volunteering at a school gym, just really kind of keeping that in my back pocket of, at the end of the day, we're here to encourage and uplift people. So, doing whatever we can to be positive, and it helps you be more positive in turn and, supporting and encouraging other people.
You see that because I follow you guys all on the LTK app and across social media, and you see a lot of smiling faces and encouraging individuals. So that's definitely pulling through. When I watched the Netflix show, America's Sweethearts, I, along with probably, I don't know, maybe over 100 million people, being a number one show, I can't even imagine how many people have seen it. We got to kind of see a good amount of the process of what it takes to become a Dallas Cowboys cheerleader. Can you tell us a little bit about what that process was like for you?
Absolutely. So this last year that's on the season is actually my second year auditioning to be on the team. I auditioned in 2022 coming out of college and made it to the second virtual round that you'll see in the first episode where Kelly and Judy are going through virtual submissions. And so I got cut my first audition right before finals. So I came back this last year in 2023, really focused on, okay, maybe if I can just make it one step further, then my goal's complete. I've been able to be better and progress in the audition series. And I made it to finals and gave finals my best go. And then my number was called for training camp. And then I just kept going and going and going. And then ultimately made the team, which was incredible. But the process is true. It's physically demanding. It's mentally demanding day in and day out. But I think just kind of keeping that mental stamina of I can do this, just push through, one more 8 count, one more dance, whatever it takes to just give it your best is what ultimately pays off. But it was very rewarding in the end.
So it's incredible to hear that you actually, it sounds like, didn't make it the first time, did make it the second time, and you became the 2023 Rookie of the Year. That's a pretty inspiring story. From when you didn't make it, do most people decide that they're going to try out again? Or do you see that from a peer group perspective that they use that as an opportunity to kind of bow out and look for other opportunities?
Yes. So actually a good handful of the current girls that are on the team did not make it their first time auditioning as well. So I think it's definitely a testament of continuing, being persistent. And sometimes it's just about kind of what the team needs and what Kelly and Judy are looking for that year. So if they're really looking for powerful performers or, great kickers, of course, the score sheet is all around, but sometimes it's just not necessarily your timing. So I think it's important to not necessarily get defeated, but just continue to become the best that you can be and put your best foot forward so that auditions, you can leave it all on the table and say, I did everything I could. At the end of the day, auditioning for DCC is an interview. So you're just trying to put your best foot forward and hope that your best is enough. But I definitely think it's not a sign of, okay, let me hang it up and try something else. Some people do attempt other things and go for other things, which is great. But a lot of us have stuck it out and just developed throughout the audition process.
It's a really inspiring story. And you mentioned earlier that you had started dance like truly as a toddler. If you were to coach somebody else on what they would need to start doing to, train and ultimately one day become a Dallas Cowboys cheerleader, like how early do they need to start? Like what types of dance do they need to focus on? And then I've also heard so much about this it factor. So I'm so curious to get to that, but I guess we'll start out with the technical piece on the dance side.
Yes, absolutely. So DCC's style is more of a sideline style is what dancers would call it, meaning that we have pom-poms. What we're doing is very elevated. We're entertaining at around 100,000 people a game, not to mention the people we're entertaining and seeing through the camera on TV as well. So it's very big. It's very strong, prominent. So I think definitely working on that style. There's so many teachers and classes and instructors that specialize in that kind of NFL professional style. So I think the style aspect is one part, and then kicks are obviously a very important factor of DCC. So working on that flexibility, that muscular strength and stamina. That was a huge factor for me, was strengthening all my leg muscles so that I could last through the kick line. So I would say those two. And then additionally, just knowing the brand, understanding what Cowboys is, who Kelly and Judy are, what DCC is, that kind of all goes into making the team in the audition process.
So I was watching a clip and there's an audition tape and the girl is doing the jump splits. And Judy makes a comment like they were pretty good, but she slid into them. And I was thinking, how else would you do it? So tell me a little bit about the jump splits. I didn't know what I didn't know there.
Yes, the jump splits are iconic. And candidly, they're my favorite part of the Thunderstruck routine because it's the very end of the routine, the grand finale, and you just jump and land. So it is interesting because technically it is a slide process because your feet just have to land first and then the rest lands. But I think sometimes when you attempt it, the first couple times that I attempted the jump split, I stuck on my right foot and then slid my left foot back. And you're supposed to land both feet at the same time, then just kind of let it flow. So it's easier, honestly, if you don't think about it. I think once our brain thinks about what we're actually doing is when our muscles start to freak out. So if you just jump and say, okay, I just have to land some way, then it's easier to just slide into everything at once.
I love that Netflix billboard that was like, please stretch before attempting Thunderstruck. It's a pretty like iconic meme at this point.
Yes.
Which speaking of,
proceed with caution.
Well, okay, now that this is a number one Netflix show, do you feel like for you guys as cheerleaders, has anything changed for you?
I think overall, I think the public perception has changed. I think so many people have a much deeper found respect for DCC and all that goes into it. Even some of my family members called and said, I knew you were in auditions. I knew you made the team, but I didn't know it was this in depth and there was this much that went into it. So I think there's just a newfound respect for DCC and NFL cheerleaders as a whole, that there's so much that goes into game days, but also outside of game days, community appearances, practice, things like that we do to uphold the season.
What do you think's been the most rewarding part of being part of this community?
I think the ability to give back and be in the community, I think, is very important for me. Growing up, I watched the previous show, Making the Team on CMT, with my family, and the representation was so important to me. Seeing other girls that were on the team that looked like me, that could do it, that made it, that had successful careers, was really inspiring to me. So it's very humbling and full circle to now be in that position where I can inspire the next 6-year-old, the next high school girl, the next college dancer that has this dream, and let them know that if I'm here, you can be here too. So to be able to do that is very fulfilling.
Well, it's been an amazing season, and I know that you're inspiring so many people with your story. What do you think has been, I guess, the most surprising thing? Like, obviously, you grew up watching this. You grew up in dance. You knew a lot about the team and the craft. But now that you're there, what is something that has either gone on that you didn't expect, or something surprising about being a Dallas Cowboys cheerleader?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think from a technical standpoint, the volume of dances and routines that are in the DCC vault is incredible. I think I learned around 50 routines when it was all said and done, which is thunder, game day performances, little, quick dances that we do on the sidelines during the games, our halftime performances. There's so much choreography that goes into it and so much attention to detail that I obviously knew some of, but not the full volume. So that was very surprising, just to kind of learn how to compartmentalize everything and keep all those dances in my brain.
I'm seeing that auditions for the 2025 team are going on right now. Are you auditioning again this year?
Yes, I am re-auditioning. I'm currently in training camp, hopeful to earn my boots back for a second year. So yes, back in it.
We're so excited for you. Wait, speaking of boots, I have watched like the fittings for the cheer uniform. So it seemingly you go through training camp. Once you're like finally selected, that seems to be kind of like the first step afterwards. And I'm so curious, like, how is that all, like, you're jumping and you're flying your arms around everything. Like, what's the tricks about this uniform? Like, what's going on inside the architecture of these little shorts and this little top?
Yes. So the material of the uniform is actually very sturdy. I remember in my uniform fitting, I tried it on and I was like stiff because I didn't want to rip anything or pull anything, but it's some sort of thick proof material that really lasts. It's sweat wicking. It lasts the entire game. So the important part is the fit, because they make it custom to your body so that nothing glides, nothing moves, nothing falls off. So that way you can, dance to your fullest ability and not have to worry about, is my button going to pop off or my shorts going to fly? Everything is really solid. And then the boots are magical. They're legit Lucchese cowboy boots. So it took a little bit of time to kind of mold it to my feet, my ankles. So that I would say took a little bit of time to just kind of adjust and get used to. But otherwise, everything else is rock solid on game day.
Well, it's fun to watch. And I do have more respect for you guys as cheerleaders, and then also just respect for the uniform, getting to like be up close. It, feels like you're up close when the camera's right there. Getting to dive into it all.
Right.
Okay. I have some rapid fire questions for you. Are you ready?
Absolutely.
What's your favorite dance move?
Ooh, I would say my favorite dance move it's called Sexy Hips. It's what we do right before we go to the kick line at the end of Thunderstruck.
Okay. Tell us, how do you do that?
So yeah, it's hard to do sitting down, but you basically like step its arms and you just kind of like move into your body. It's a nice way to like take a deep breath before we go and walk and do all the kicking and jump splits at the very end.
The hair flip is the one thing that y'all do I feel like I could do. So maybe that's going to be my next move.
Yes. Yeah. We have hair flips. And then there's an insider note. We have what's called a bang flip. So if it's not a full hair, you just kind of flip your bangs back.
I've seen that.
It's a quick way to just like get your hair out of your face.
Yeah. I've totally seen y'all do that. What's the best thing about living in Dallas?
Ooh, I would say the best thing about living in Dallas, I think there's an endless amount of options in Dallas. It's a big city, but also feels small city because you have Frisco, you have Addison, you have downtown Dallas and all of the suburbs within downtown Dallas. So there's so many places to eat, so many places to shop, so many things to experience. And I think that's my favorite thing. I never get bored. There's always something new to do here.
Who is your favorite Dallas Cowboys player?
Ooh, I would say currently my favorite Dallas Cowboy is CeeDee Lamb. But then of all time, I would say my favorite Cowboys player is Emmitt Smith.
Ooh, that's a good one. Yeah, good old school. All the old school Cowboys like sweaters and shirts are super trending on LTK. And it's like reminiscent of the good old days. That Troy Aikman, the Emmitt Smith.
That vintage vibe. I love it.
Okay, what is in your cheer bag?
Ooh, I would say, my practice essentials. So my palms, my uniforms, my shoes. But I always pack some extra makeup. So bronzer, blush, lip liner, anything that I need once I've sweat. And then I always pack my finishing spray. Just after I sweat, pack it back on, leave the makeup.
Is there a particular finishing spray that you like?
I love the One Size finishing spray by Patrick Ta. That's my go-to.
Okay. And I've noticed that you guys all have incredibly gorgeous makeup. And then I look at myself on the screen here. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see me and I'm like, oh, maybe I'm a little like, I don't know. I need the tips and tricks. Do they give you guys any like makeup tips and tricks or any sort of training?
Yes. So when we shoot our cameos, like the pictures that you'll see online, we have a makeup artist that does our makeup and kind of shows us what they use or what they would recommend for oily skin, for concealer, for things like that. So I definitely took a lot of notes on cameo day. And I think a lot of things are also passed down through the team and through leaders. They'll pick up on certain eyeliners that they use that last or things for eyebrows. So I kind of, I'm a sponge and just soak up all the information that people have to share.
One of the things I've been most curious with you guys is, do you ever mix with the football players?
That's a great question. And one that I get very often, honestly. But no, I really don't have any, or none of us really have any interaction with the players. I think the way our schedules are set up, the football players practice in the mornings and the afternoons. We work our jobs in the mornings and the afternoons and then come to practice at night. We never really see each other or interact. The only time that I've been around Cowboys players is at our annual hospital visits, our children's hospital visits. But otherwise, we're pretty separate. We just support them on game days.
So interesting. Well, you guys do a great job of it. Okay, last one. If you were not a Dallas Cowboys cheerleader, what would you be doing?
Ooh, if I were not a Dallas Cowboys cheerleader, I would probably be traveling. I love to travel. So I'd probably be in Europe somewhere with my laptop working from home or on a beach somewhere. So probably out and about.
I totally agree. Well, Camille, we are rooting for you. We can't wait to see you make the team this year. Best of luck this week. And thank you so much for joining us on More to Say.
Thank you so much for having me.
You can listen to More to Say on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And I'd love to hear from you. Share your comments and questions in the reviews section, or you can reach out to me at Amber Vinsbox on LTK, Instagram, and of course, LinkedIn.